We're going to get into this topic of the wealthy and what their responsibility is. Bill O'Reilly has some thoughts on that, and there's a study out on it, on empathy of the rich, etc. But that goes, of course, we're discussing all of that in the context of the tax cut deal, right? That went largely to the rich. By the way, I read a breakdown of all the different tax deductions, and as you look at it, remember they said, oh no, the middle class will be getting huge tax deductions from this, and they're bigger than what the rich will be getting. That's not really that true. There are big ones like the payroll tax is $112 billion that's going largely to the middle class and not the rich. But as you look at the total list, when you combine the tax cuts for the rich with corporate tax cuts, they're overwhelming. Okay.
All right, well, you can't do that.
No, of course, that would be wildly unfair because, of course, the very poor run the corporations.
Middle class essentially runs corporate America.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then Simon Johnson had a very good article about it, too, and he said, look, all of this stuff, and he's on my side, and mind you, I'm in the minority. Just let me be clear on that, right? I'm in that 14% of Americans who
you don't want anybody to get.
Yeah, I don't think we should
want
have
all
any
levels
tax.
Restored to pre-Bush tax cuts.
Definitely. Okay.
Communist.
And that goes for the income tax, that goes for the stupid ethanol subsidies, that goes for all of it. That goes for the payroll tax cut coming out of Social Security. Almost everything on there I think is a terrible idea, right? But Simon Johnson brings up the other side, which I haven't talked about enough, which is it's not going to work. He's like, look, one, it's a temporary blip, okay? It doesn't address any of the underlying problems of our economy. It gives you more money to spend in the short term. This is something I have been saying, right? Mm-hmm. And then once that runs out, it runs out, right, and you haven't created any more jobs. Now that spending could lead to some temporary new jobs, right? But it doesn't really address your manufacturing base, et cetera, right?
Well, I mean, that said, that's true. Neither would restoring the levels to the pre-Bush tax cuts.
Right. So then Simon Johnson goes to the next step and goes, but think about the downside. So he said already the financial markets are reacting to this. And obviously the stock market, some corporation, it did well because some corporations are going to get huge tax cuts. So that, so their prices go up, or, almost artificially right there for a while. But the rest of the financial markets go, wait a minute, you can't spend all that money and have these huge deficit problems. And the Fed is printing money like crazy. And at some point, not devalue the dollar by a significant amount, thereby raising interest rates, thereby, possibly slowing down the economy.
Right, stifling loans again.
Right. So Simon Johnson makes the point that at the end of all this, you might have actually done more economic damage than good.
I mean, yeah, I don't even know why that's like some big, obviously, the more that we continue to push stuff down the road, the more that the problem might be greater when we finally get down the road. Obviously, the hope is that this second stimulus leads to a stimulus that is more long-lasting, that then we react to the fact that there's more money in play, that more stuff gets created long-term. It's possible.
It's possible, and that's why a lot of people agree with that.
If the only thing that matters is the deficit, or the principal thing that matters is the deficit, well, then it won't. Then you'll be right. And that's a belief that I share, and obviously that he shares, and that others share.
Right. And final thought on this. Look, all of it is complicated, right? Because, interest rates going up also has an upside, too. We think it would slow down the economy a little bit. That's why the Fed's keeping them at nearly 0%. But
they've been at 0% for a while, and it hasn't helped.
Yeah.
So,
maybe it's helped prevent something even worse, right? And being generous about it. But look, the downside of having the interest rates that low is like today I went to the bank and I was thinking of opening a savings account. And I asked them, all right, great, what's the interest I get if I put it in a savings account?
Yeah, like, I don't know, 0.8, 1.1.
No. I thought they must be wrong. I'm going to go to a second place to check. But they said 0.05%.
Yeah.
0.05%. Let me give you a sense of what that means. That means if you put in $1,000 in a savings account, at the end of the year, you will have earned 50 cents.
Yeah, but if you put 10,000 in,
then you'll get $5.
Then you have $5.
Which could pay for the parking in the bank parking lot.
Right.
On your way out.
Assuming you leave all that money there the entire year.
The entire year. Okay.
Yeah. By the way, here's who should open a savings account: the billionaires. Otherwise, no one.
Right.
Yeah. Just put it in your checking account and leave it there and spend it when you feel like it.
Yeah, because there's no
There's no point.
There's no upside.
Yeah.
There's no upside.
I mean, you can invest it.
Right.
Take that $10,000 and invest
Exactly.
it. Yeah, right.
There's other things you can do with the money. But look, so, and what does all that do, by the way? It encourages us to spend, spend, spend. That's the whole point. But spending is not a real economic plan in the long term. That's a short term, at best, you hope, stimulus. But it's not a real plan to create jobs.
No, I mean, it could be generational, though. I mean, it could, if
Yeah.
it works, it helps for a long time, and we haven't had a serious, it doesn't appear, and I'm not an economist nor anyone who really knows anything about the economy. I'll just stop talking now. But, I mean, we haven't had in decades a long-term plan for what the economy is going to be and what it's going to look like. And we took this massive hit, significant hit, which could happen again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or in a week, or in 7 years. And so all this strikes me as what this afforded was an opportunity to say, okay, man, this is off kilter. What's our plan? We're going to have this meeting. What are we going to do going forward? And what we're going to do going forward is exactly the same debate that we've always had.
Yeah. Look, in a manner of speaking, it's what Bush did after 9/11. He said, look, it's your patriotic duty to go shopping. And that has been our plan for the last 20, 30 years. And it's a terrible plan. And what it does is it reinflates bubbles, and then those bubbles pop, and the bubbles are getting worse and worse. So speaking of which, of course, you know that some have done really well in this economy. They're called bankers. And Morgan Stanley CEO James Gorman apparently wrote an internal memo telling people that if anybody leaked their bonuses, because they're going to be so enormously high that he will quote personally escort them out of the building. First of all, I
doubt that.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
You know what, James, Jim, I'd have security do it.
Yeah, and second of all, oh, you're going to escort me out of the building. What's much more important is that you would lose your job where you're making millions upon millions of dollars off the American people's back.
Also, theoretically, by the time you're escorted out of the building and leaked it, you've already cashed the bonus check. All right, fine, escort me out. I don't care.
Right. But see, these guys are such clowns. This James Gorman guy.
Who's he the head of?
Morgan Stanley.
Morgan Stanley.
Yeah. When he became CEO, he apparently took up boxing classes. I know, you're such a tough guy. You're so tough. Like, you find out what you're doing with derivatives.
Yeah.
I don't need you boxing. Okay?
Also, I mean, does that, I don't know. I mean, is your implication that not only is he going to escort them out the door, but he's going to, like, give them a right cross?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess. Right? So anyway, by the way, you know what happened? That memo that he wrote that was that tough, it leaked.
Yeah, right.
That's why we know about it.
And when he finds the guy be like, hey, you just said if I leak bonus information.
Right. Oh, but of course, the overall point is, why are they trying so hard to, the actual facts, the numbers behind the bonuses?
Because it's going to be so embarrassing to the bankers because the bonuses are so low, and it will dissuade people from getting into banking. And obviously, they need the best and the brightest. So, I don't understand bonuses.
Uh-huh.
Why don't you just pay a salary? Like, why do we have to give a bonus that big? Like, why don't you just give the guy $3 million a year instead of giving him $84,000 a year and then giving him a $14 million bonus?
Right. Well,
I got an incentive. It makes you work harder, but
no. It's not. Look, it's actually makes things worse for the rest of us, because what they want to do, of course, it's incentives, right? But what they want to do is, hey, pump up the short-term profits of this company as much as you possibly can, because then the CEO is going to take home that much more money, right? So that's why he wants to incentivize you to go, take risks, go crazy. Then your bonus will be higher, right? Then my bonus will be higher, and then we'll just run away.
Yeah, but it doesn't make any. It really is. I mean, we accept that this is the process, but it's ridiculous. I mean, nobody else works on bonuses like this. I mean, only in this crazy world. I mean, like even in sports where they have contract incentives, it's like if Tom Brady goes to the Super Bowl, it's great, and he gets an extra $500,000 on his $18.5 million salary. So yeah, he gets a 3% bonus. Whee!
Yeah, and by the way, you're supposed to be a professional. Tom Brady isn't playing for the Super Bowl bonus. No. He's playing because he wants to get to the Super Bowl.
And it's such a bad idea. It's just the reason they want this to get out, because it's going to be embarrassing for the industry. It's going to force Congress to react to it. And they're worried that Congress will react with more regulation.
Right.
But overall, that's the fear. It's not just bad press.
Yeah.
But it's a stupid system. No CEO, nobody should get a $45 million bonus.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Now, these are the same guys that are saying Obama's too tough on him. Obama had a meeting with the CEOs earlier this week. By the way, just a couple of facts for you. U.S. corporations are on track for the biggest earnings growth in 22 years, and the stock market is headed for the best back-to-back annual gain since 2004. And American business and profits earned profits at an annual rate of $1.66 trillion in just the third quarter, according to the Commerce Department. That is the highest figure recorded since the government began keeping track 60 years ago. Profits have grown for 7 consecutive quarters at some of the fastest rates in history.
What's the $1.66 trillion?
That is the earned profits for American businesses.
This year?
No, just in the third quarter.
$1.66 trillion in the third quarter. And then what was the stat that more or less that President Clinton gave when he had the coup?
They have $1.8 trillion in cash reserves
that they're just not spending.
Right. So just think about that for a second too. What we just did was in that tax cut deals, we gave these giant tax cuts to corporations so they could, deduct the cost of their equipment quicker. They could do more research and development. It's all supposed to incentivize them, which then is supposed to create jobs. But they were already sitting on record amount of cash, so it's not like giving them more cash is going to do the job. If they go from 1.8 trillion to 2 trillion, will they then be like, oh, okay, let's hire?
Yeah, I don't.
That has nothing to do with it.
I don't understand what the incentive is. And then he's having this meeting with the CEOs now.
He had it on Wednesday.
He had it on Wednesday, but he had one this week.
Yeah.
And he had one earlier, right? Isn't that the one with Joe Barton complained that he'd never been so embarrassed? Or was that just with bankers?
I'm not sure.
Remember when Joe Barton said that he'd never felt like Obama was holding them hostage, and he was ashamed of the way Obama had treated the bankers? I'll look it up. I'll get the quote. But it was like 5 weeks ago. It wasn't that early.
Well, you see, this was the new CEO meeting this week to say, oh, our bad, no more regulations going forward. All right, so, and one last note on this before we get to the fun stuff on this issue, which is Paul Krugman's article in the New York Times called Wall Street Whitewash. We had told you this story a couple of days ago where the Republicans on the Fiscal Commission, Crisis Inquiry Commission, said, we will bail and not make this bipartisan unless you write the report on the Wall Street collapse, but not mention the words Wall Street, interconnection, deregulation, etc. Okay? And so the Democrats were like, and the independent on the commission were like, how do we write a report about Wall Street and not mention Wall Street? Well, that was the report, and guess what happened? The Republicans released their own version of the report ahead of time, and exactly as was reported on the Huffington Post, none of those words were in the report. They never once used the phrase Wall Street in their inquiry into what went wrong in 2008's economic
in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. And so what?
Not just in Lower Manhattan, near the site of the greatest tragedy in American history.
So, and by the way, I disagree with Krugman just a little bit. He says this goes to the deep, philosophical problem of the Republican Party, which is that they think, that government is the source of all problems. Paul, you're misreading it. They don't think that. They just work for the bankers.
Right.
I mean, it's not as subtle as you think it is. They had a governing philosophy, that guy pays me, I omit the word Wall Street.
I mean, it goes together. I mean, it's they do think that the source of most problems are government, and then
they're paid to think that.
By the way, real quick, Joe Barton. It was the BP meeting that he thought that Obama was, he was embarrassed by the way Obama.
Oh, is that the time that he apologized to BP?
That was the time he apologized to BP.
Yeah. All right. So now, as you know, Rich, you're doing great, et cetera. And we're in tough economic times, but the rich are doing fantastic. But Bill O'Reilly thinks we're giving too much to the poor. Okay, Jim McDermott came on this program and then went on another program and talked about how
from Washington.
Yeah, about how it was at Christmas time that to take away unemployment insurance as the Republicans were planning to do is unbelievable, right? And Bill O'Reilly explains, no. The Christian thing to do is to beat down on the poor that are undeserving. And he says, look, some people run into tough times. Okay, we can give them money. Sometimes maybe we'd have to see. But others just don't deserve it. But he brings Christianity into it, which I love. So he wrote this in his article. He said, but there are millions of Americans who are not responsible. And the cold truth is that the rest of us cannot afford to support them.
By the way, does he mean defense contractors?
Yeah, or the oil companies, which we give $45 billion in subsidies to.
They're not responsible.
What can you do? They weren't responsible when they leaked oil all over the Gulf. But my sense is he doesn't mean that. He continues, every fair-minded person should support government safety nets for people who need assistance through no fault of their own. But guys like McDermott don't make distinctions like that. For them, the baby Jesus wants us to provide no matter what the circumstance. But being a Christian, I know that while Jesus promoted charity at the highest level, he was not self-destructive. The Lord helps those who help themselves, does he not? Except that, of course, is not in the Bible. That is made up by American capitalists to excuse not giving to the poor, which is what Jesus wanted you to do.
Who does he think gets unemployment?
Oh, the undeserving, obviously. The bums, the lazy people who don't want to work.
If you haven't worked and if you haven't lost a job, you can't get unemployment.
Ah, interesting. Well, they're the new bums. They were working 2 years ago.
And then they just thought,
but around 2008, they just all of a sudden got really lazy.
I hate getting up in the morning. I'm so tired.
Right. Look, the phrase, the Lord helps those who help themselves, is nowhere to be found in the Bible. And I don't mind the phrase. I mean, it's just not true. Okay, I'm a capitalist. I don't mind. Yeah, you should help yourself, and we should help those that help themselves. That's great, right? But that's not what Jesus said. Jesus said, help the poor, the disabled, the maimed, give them, because they are going to heaven, and the rich are not. Okay? Yeah. But he just turns it completely on its head, and he says, Jesus wouldn't have been self-destructive like that.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, they go up to Jesus of Nazareth, and they're like, hey, should we help people who lost their jobs for a while? And he's like, hey, I'm not self-destructive, buddy, all right?
That sounds self-destructive.
Yeah, and he said, these guys look like bums. I'm not going to help them out, all right?
Republicans, so it's the Lord helps people who help themselves.
Yeah.
So for Republicans, is they help people who already have the means to help themselves.
Yeah.
I think I stole that from Family Guy, but nonetheless, it's good.
Right, and by the way, technically, Jesus was as self-destructive as it gets.
Yeah, it's just the first thing I thought was, that was a self-destructive dude.
Yeah, I mean, he knew he was going to get hung up on a cross.
Yeah.
And he did it anyway.
Self-destructive? He died for somebody else's sins.
Yeah. I mean, look, I mean, if
why didn't you just say, I didn't do it?
Right, no. And, if you believe it, it's self-destructive in the best possible way.
Right, sure.
But definitely self-destructive. No, it's amazing. They lean on the Bible, but they pervert it 100% to say, no, Jesus told you not to help the poor. Just please read the Bible, please.
And maybe, maybe those who, I was going to say the left, but those who aren't on the lunatic right, maybe should just start using the Bible more.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're going to pervert it, you should probably pervert it back.
Well, I mean, that's what Jim McDermott was doing. And that's why Bill O'Reilly hated it.
Yeah.
He's like, Christ, helping the poor, that guy sucks. I mean, he's awesome. He meant help the rich.
Why are we so afraid to talk about defense spending? Because, I mean, it dwarfs all this stuff. I mean, unless you include Social Security and Medicare. But I guess that is what he's talking about. Like, he thinks that that's enough. So God forbid we should have unemployment business or any tax break for single mothers.
I know you don't mean this, but Social Security doesn't count. We pay into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay?
No, I know. Yeah.
We pay into it. So that you just...
No, but I mean, he uses
it's like
it.
a bank account.
It doesn't matter. He uses it, to him,
Right.
it's a handout.
Right.
That's how they think of it.
Yeah.
It's all...
It's a handout because you give the middle class back the money that they put into the system.
Yeah.
He thinks, no. The rich should get the middle class money. Why are we handing it back to them when it was their money? Right? No, it's of course, and the reason we don't talk about defense is because people make an enormous amount of money off of it. So they've come up with this thing of if you do, you're soft on defense, you're weak, you're into terrorists.
But it's not even. You're right, of course. But it's not even just regarding defense spending. It's not just politicians who won't talk about it. Like, people don't want to talk about it. Like, it's not that they're afraid to talk about it. Like it was cancer in the 1950s. But the sense is, when you talk about this stuff, just among everyday Americans, that no, obviously we have to have the defense spending. Like, we need that. It's like off the table as an issue to talk about, which is one reason why politicians don't talk about it, because it's a political killer. I mean, I don't know anybody who sits around and talks about it. There was that period of time in the 1980s when we were paying $278 million for a plunger. But now we don't talk, like, I mean, I don't know, do we still build aircraft carriers?
Well, look, of course.
No, but we don't need them.
Of course we do.
There's no reason. We have enough. They work, and we don't need any of them.
Right, of course.
I'm guessing. I don't.
No, but look, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, and I don't want to sound conspiratorial. It's just, it is what it is. Nobody brings it up. Nobody has a vested interest in bringing it up. Like, when Fox News wants to bring something up, they do. They talk about it for 24 hours. They drive everybody else to talk about it. Nobody has an agenda of, hey, let's cut defense spending. But a lot of people have the agenda of, under no circumstances can you cut defense spending.
We should, what needs to be is not a percentage number. What needs to be talked about is the actual dollars. Mm-hmm. Like, here's our deficit, and here's what we spend on defense. I'm curious. I don't know what those numbers are, but that would be a curious thing, because the issue to me is, how do you make people like my mom, and I just use her randomly, understand that, or me? Like, I don't even think about it. I'm like, well, what do we do? How do we cut spending? Well, can't cut defense. Like, it's ingrained.
Oh,
that's not what we do.
I would cut the living crap out of defense. And it's not because I'm afraid that, I'm not worried that the Soviet Union is going to attack us. Okay, like, we spend more on defense than the rest of the world combined. It's not about being soft on defense. It's, first of all, when's the last time we did defense? All we do is offense.
Right, yeah.
Okay? And second of all, it's the biggest pork barrel spending. It's the most inefficient, wasteful, corrupt part of our system. All right, last thing on the wealthy. So, fascinating article and study, actually, that came out in Psychological Science. And it's about the different levels of empathy that the poor and the rich have. And it turns out the rich have less empathy than the middle class and the poor. Now, that's the conclusion of this study. It's just one study. I'm actually quite surprised by it, to be honest with you. But the way that they showed it was, and this is a very common thing in psychology, they judge empathy by, can you tell facial expressions? So they will show you a bunch of pictures, and can you read the cues? So, okay, is that guy upset? Is that guy happy? And the rich are like, I don't know. I don't care. I'm rich.
Yeah. Okay. That's weird. I don't read that as exactly being in the study, but maybe I missed that part.
Right. Okay. They didn't say that, but they did significantly worse than the other classes, who were much better at picking up social cues.
You know, in every study, I like finding the reason for that. It doesn't mean that the results are wrong. It doesn't mean that rich people are not insensitive, but there's always part of a study that tells you why it's this way, that we learn, you know, almost always in certain studies where we learn about one group going another way, it's because there was money and an opportunity to do something. I'm not knocking that, but frequently that will influence the study. It doesn't mean you should ignore it. But the wealthy, it says here, don't need to rely on others for help, so their people skills have atrophied. So literally, they encounter fewer people than middle class and poor people, who every day have to encounter other regular people. The rich have managed in many ways to live a life where they only encounter people like themselves, and they never have to ask for anything.
See, that's, I think, the last part is very important, because if this study is true, because if you're struggling and you need other people's help, you need to be able to read their social cues better so that you can figure out how to get that help. Whereas these guys, according to this, right, and this is just, and by the way, you should be clear, that's just a hypothesis on why they don't do as well in picking up on social cues. And since the rich are not as dependent on reading other people's social cues and dependent on other people because they already have their wealth, well, that's why they say that that skill atrophies.
And that's what it is. I think it's the atrophication more than the conscious effort that I need to be able to read somebody's skills. If you interact with hundreds of people every day, you're going to know more about human interaction and human emotion than if you have your personal shopping done for you. You know, it's real quick. Jeff Bridges was on the Jimmy Kimmel show. Yes, it was the Jimmy Kimmel show. I think on the What the Flick program. I said Jimmy Fallon, but he was on Jimmy Kimmel, and and Kimmel asked him, made some line about like, do people bug you? Something. He's like, when you're out, like you're out at an art gallery or the Cheesecake Factory. It was funny. And then Bridges laughed, and he laughed because he didn't go to the Cheesecake Factory. And I thought, you're missing something by not going to the Cheesecake Factory as an example of Olive Garden or anything. You're not going to a restaurant, good or bad, and interacting with people nearly as much as the rest of us do. And I understand why Jeff Bridges doesn't, but there's a cost to that.
Yeah, it's what we were talking about earlier in the week. Barack Obama's golfing partner, one of them is one of the CEOs of one of the top banks in the world, right? And I'm sure others are similar. Now, he can't golf with the plumber from West Philly, right? But at the same time, if that's all you interact with, that has bad consequences in the long run.
Yeah, in the long run, yeah.
Yeah, and so, look, this is not to judge the rich, and look, some of the rich people in the world, and we did the story last week, I think.
Some of the rich people in the world are your friends.
Some of my best friends are super rich. No, seriously, 51 billionaires giving away half of their fortune, right? Obviously, enormous charitable contributions by the rich throughout history. You can't make gross generalizations at all. If anything, I would just look at this study as if you do have money, like, hey, keep an eye on this. Like, this might happen. So
if you're a billionaire, go to Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially if you're not famous, because then you can go to the Cheesecake Factory.
Just go
if you're famous, it's harder, right?
Yeah, you don't need to do it. Just go to the grocery store, go to Cheesecake Factory, go to the Gap.
Right. All right, let's take a quick 1-minute break here and then come back and we'll tell you which congressman, it turns out, was supporting terrorism. Interesting. Young Turks. Back on the Young Turks. All right, we've got more on porn. First, Anna has a point.
I do. Okay, so we're talking about whether or not porn depicting rape is legal in the United States. We're a little unclear on it. We're thinking probably yes, it is legal.
I don't think there's any question that it's legal.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I mean, obviously,
I don't know.
Obviously, there's literally a question.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure there's somebody in the audience who knows. Email us or tweet it or whatever. Okay?
Right. So I asked the guys a question. Do you think porn depicting rape would motivate someone to rape, another woman, or would it create like this culture where people think it's okay because of what they're seeing in porn? Or we were also talking about pedophilia and underage sex in porn and that kind of thing. And it's really interesting because some people are under the impression that porn doesn't cause any changes in society. But as crazy as it sounds, the one example that I could always refer to is porn is one of the main reasons why the Brazilian wax became so popular, because men started expecting that. Okay,
right.
So
I don't know what this is. What are the Brazilian wax?
It's when the woman waxes her coochie, like everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I know what that is. I thought it was Brazilian wax, like murders, like you whack a guy, like in the mafia.
Back to the Ginsu now.
I was like, there's a porn where like Brazilian guys, are they like snuff films? I'm like, what is this story that I missed? Okay,
Right.
The Brazilian wax, right?
Right. No, and yes, and look, we've had the previous stories on the show. Now, guys and girls are doing all the things that you see in American porn. This, you know what the
Yeah, but
succession
it's not.
is.
That's not from American porn that developed.
No, that's from porn in general.
I don't think it's from porn in general at all. I think it's.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You think the Brazilian wax is a result of porn?
Yes.
No.
But number two, like, okay, now we're going to get too graphic, but the facial, that's definitely because of porn.
No, porn did it because it's something that people wanted.
No, I got it. But
Right.
now it's become like popular, like
Okay.
like no big deal. Like,
Okay,
well, of course, at the end of sex, what would you do?
then ultimately, then the lack of the missionary position is because of that. Or almost any sexual act, which oral sex is because of that. It's grown exponentially. Sure, it happened, but women were timid about it, and then we put it in movies. I mean, it's also the natural progression as we move from a Victorian attitude towards sex. I mean,
Natural progression from Victorian attitude to facial.
to anime, right? No, but I mean it is. So I do not buy for a second that these are women trying to look sexy, and it goes from word of mouth as women accept that their bodies are not something that they have to cover up all the time, that they shouldn't feel shame about their desire for sex. And this is one of the manifestations of it, and I suspect at some point, whether it's 2 years from now or 25 years from now, we'll get away from it. And it won't be as popular, and then it'll come back. It'll be like the goatee.
You know, I'm going to try to find it, but I remember we did do a study on the show about how porn has just fundamentally changed men's expectations when it comes to sex.
Definitely. Yeah, I've read that too.
Yeah, so I think that's why the question of whether or not this anime rape porn should be legal or not is really important, because will that anime rape porn have any type of effect on men?
Right, but
And not men in general, but you know, men, as you mentioned, that are predisposed to.
Yeah, I know, but look, under that logic, then okay, we should ban like 28, 48, 828 different versions of porn, because so much of porn is disastrous. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, oh, we don't want men doing that. Oh, they're doing that. No, we don't want men doing that.
Yeah, but
Do you see what I'm
there's
saying?
a difference between things that are kinky and things that are illegal. You see what I'm saying?
Not I mean, yes, except that's a really difficult line for somebody to.
Difficult line.
In fact, I would say an impossible line. And there have been a significant number of studies. You know, the Concerned Women for America. All those people think that porn leads to this behavior. There is, as far as I know, from everything I've read, and it's not a little bit, it's a bunch of stuff. We've done it on the show going back years and years and years. There's no tie between it. And some of the similar examples are, as you're talking about illegal acts, we got kids playing crazy video games where they shoot people in really ways that I suspect upset both of you. We're like, Jesus, you're playing that? What are you shooting the guy in the head 30 times before you see the blood spray? No indication that that leads to violence. None. No indication that watching violent, you know, back in the 70s, they were like, all this violence on TV, we're seeing all this murder and movies and blood that we never saw before, it's going to lead to something. It doesn't. It just doesn't.
And just so you know, I mean, people might say like, oh yeah, but then look at all the violence in America. Actually, since the 1970s, violence in America has gone down significantly.
That reporting of it has gone up, as our awareness have, and maybe there's a slight societal change that we come to accept violence more. Is possible, and I'm sure there's some specific instances, and you're definitely right about changing men's expectations for porn. That seems obvious. But, I mean, expectations for sex because of porn. But it's a huge next step, I think, to say that therefore it goes beyond it to commit acts where reasonable people, or even marginally reasonable people, know as, you know, rape or a snuff film or any of that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not something I'm claiming. I just think it's an interesting question to ask.
Totally,
You know?
it's definitely an interesting question to ask.
All right, so next porn story.
All right. There are a lot of porn stories today. All right, it turns out that a gaming company known as 3XXX, or 3XXX, has created a pilot porn game. And it's an interactive game where you use the Kinect. And the Kinect is a new technology for the Xbox, where you basically grope a woman. That's what you do.
Okay, fine.
We have video demonstrating this.
Okay.
Okay, so this is what you'd be able to do.
All right, so you see the guy's hand. He doesn't need, unlike he doesn't need to hold anything. There's no remote control or anything. Just his hand, and he goes on there. See, here, of course, what I'm trying to understand, I'm amused by this, obviously. It's absurd.
Looks like he's tickling her.
Yeah. I couldn't be more amused by this. This is
She
fantastic.
doesn't seem really into it.
Yeah. She's like, well, why is there a detached hand?
Right.
It's like, all right, okay, go ahead, but it's kind of weird.
Can you slap?
I don't know. But my question is, can he feel anything?
No, of course not. He doesn't have anything in his hand. So
Right, so what's the point?
I don't know.
I like how she got up there. Like she was kind of into it.
I think he's changing her angle.
Whatever.
But I think what this game is used for is as he's watching himself feel this
Really?
woman up.
You think?
That perhaps there's something going on with the other hand.
Yeah.
Okay, who knew? Okay.
I think what this game is used for.
Porn used for that? That's got to be a first. A lot of breakthroughs. All right, so this is our first interactive porn, and it's a disaster.
It is a disaster.
Okay, I mean, we were hoping for better than this. Okay, we've got what's it from the Addams Family, The Thing, just walking around with his weird hand, like whoa, 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 right?
But remember, this isn't the first gaming company that's come up with a game like this. There's actually another interactive game that was a lot. It hasn't been completely developed yet, but it was a lot more, I guess, hands-on.
You can't get any more hands-on than that. That's all that was.
And basically with this game, remember, there's a sex toy involved. And you attach yourself to the sex toy, and then you play the game, and stuff happens.
Right, the other game.
Yeah, the other game, not this game.
Yeah, I think they're going to combine all these games, but you need some sort of sex toy, otherwise, as one of the articles explained, you're basically dry humping.
Well, you know what's interesting, and what could clearly happen, and I don't even feel like saying this because I now want to develop it and make millions.
Okay, well, give it a shot. Go ahead.
It's a really great idea.
Uh-huh.
Well, you know how people are on the headsets and they talk to each other with these interactive games where they're online? I mean, Jesus must play it. I'm sure he does. But Jesus, you play games where you put the little headset on, you talk to your lame friends?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and sometimes you play with people who aren't your friends, right? You can. There's like, you know, in this community.
Yep.
Well, where are the porn games where you meet people and instead of shooting Afghans, which is I imagine what happens in all these games, or aliens, you know, and it used to be Nazis, it's a sex game, and so you're
Your
online.
avatars have
Your
sex.
avatars are having sex, and you're talking to girls. I mean, who are obviously will be guys pretending to be girls, but, but whatever, you don't know.
That's the only reason why your game would be profitable. Otherwise, if you've got a girl who's willing to have virtual sex with you, you should meet her up and do non-virtual
Yeah,
sex.
but here's the thing. Like girls who go online, sometimes they don't have to tell their friends about it. They can meet some guy. And we've
Right.
heard from guys who've done this, and in this case, we actually are not talking about ourselves. We've heard from guys who are like, no, this is great. You send a specific kind of profile. You don't say, because I just want to hook up one time and be done with you. But there's like language. Just be like, I'm not looking for anything serious, just a fun night out on the town. And she'll do it, and she'll agree, and you'll have that moment. And then she hasn't met this guy. She hasn't talked to any of her friends about it. It doesn't exist for her. Right?
So, but that also still is going to involve sex toys, right?
I understand. The game?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but you see the characters do it. Probably not. I mean, you could, but it's probably just going to involve, there might be some attachment. It's entirely possible, but it's probably just going to be you pleasuring yourself. But I'm saying that while a lot of guys will pretend to be girls, obviously there's no way around that. But there will be a lot of women who can live in this thing without any repercussions, right? I
Right.
mean, it's quiet, it's safe. They get to have a little fun. They're talking.
So there's no we, there's no connect, there's no floating hand.
No, there could
it's
be-
just two, and then you can get your avatars to do
right,
whatever.
and you're seeing
right.
it. You're like you're essentially you and a woman
It's
you
phone
don't
sex,
know,
but you're seeing it on the
but
screen.
you're creating it, so you see it with your little. I don't know. It's
All right, I
something.
can buy into it.
It's something.
I can buy into it.
Yeah.
All right, deal.
Done.
Okay. All right. Now, look, as I watch this new 3XXX thing, I can see it though. I can see how it's going to develop. This is obvious. This is like the Pong.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Of interactive porn. Of course, you need something like a sex toy, right? But then you're going to be able to move yourself. You're going to be able to move the thing. And then probably, as we talked about in another story, you could probably take pictures of people and then insert them into that. Instead of like an anime character or
Right, it can be
animated character.
Right. It can be the girl in the next cubicle.
Right.
That's terrifying.
See,
Yeah,
you
that's
we
creepy.
talked about that
Yeah.
before, yeah. And so then they'll put that picture up and then
But you know-
do this.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you know what I'm worried about? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
When
Guaranteed.
it does get that advanced, and it will get that advanced, how obsolete will women be for men? Like they'll
Especially
be like,
in Japan.
I don't have to go up to this woman. Why would I have to go up to this woman? I just got to sneak a picture of her, upload it onto my video game, and
Oh,
go
by the
to
way,
work.
if that happens, this sneaking a picture thing is going to turn into a disaster.
Yeah.
All the guys are like, okay.
Right.
Or this could turn around and be excellent for men, because then women, that sounds, I heard a little bit of panic in Anna's voice. Maybe they'll be like, I need to start approaching men. So they're never going to approach
It's
me.
always the unintended consequences. That's a
complete
great
That's
point.
turnaround.
interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, your virtual you is competition for the real you, so the real you better get to it. You see what I'm saying?
I'm not too worried about myself because I don't have to worry about rejection. But I'm talking
Oh,
about the less attractive women out there.
Oh, you're the worst. Unbearable.
I'm just kidding.
They should do a study on whether like more attractive people have less empathy. Like, you know, richer people have less empathy. Oh, please, I don't have the.
I think you're right, though, Anna, that there would be some, you know, the easier it is to have a full, complete life, although it won't be, but to get all the things that we need as people without leaving the basement has an effect.
Absolutely.
We don't know exactly what that effect is, but you know, there also, however, will be guys who, you know, the flip side is they are making some connection. And that, so I don't know. It's interesting, though. But on my game, someone is going to take my idea, and they're going to make millions. And typically, of all Mankiewicz's, we won't get a cut.
Yes. All right, we got so many more stories to go to. No break. We're not taking a break. But let's do these because these are great.
All right, I want to talk about a DMV employee in San Francisco who recently resigned because he got in trouble for sending a terrible letter to a transgendered woman who came into the office. All right, so Jane Velez Mitchell did a great piece on this, and we have a video.
The report on it is more fun than the story.
Totally.
itself.
The report's the best part.
All right, let's watch.
Turning now to an outrageous case of hate and prejudice that frankly turns my stomach. Tonight, a primetime Issues exclusive with a transgender female who fears for her safety tonight. 23-year-old Amber Use needed a new driver's license to reflect her sex change. Little did she know that the DMV employee who quote-unquote helped her at the counter would later allegedly send her some very hateful and threatening mail.
What I am doing is evil and that I'm going to burn in hell and that I should die.
4 days after going to the DMV, she got a shocking letter. Here are some of the highlights or lowlights. Quote, Jesus clearly prohibits gender change operations.
Clearly.
Her choice to have one was, quote, a very evil decision. This guy also informed her that homosexuality was, quote, an abomination that leads to hell.
That's actually
and
true.
Cries for vengeance. Cries for vengeance, he said. Now, that sounds like a threat to me. I have the letter right here in my hand, and I've read it. Sounds like it's very threatening.
Hey, is that the whole edit? Do we have the next couple seconds, or you just cut it off there? All right.
That was the whole edit. Yeah.
All right, there's a funny thing that she says. You're right, Jen. There's so many things I love, but one is the helped her at the counter. Like she left her fingers up for the at the counter. You know?
Yeah, the other thing I like about the quotes is I'm not in favor of this as quotes.
Right. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The guy came in and helped her at the counter when she approached the counter and said, "I would like a new driver's license."
And you know what this is? This is an outrage. And then he said it was evil. And man, she's got some hair on her.
She
man.
does.
She pulled the Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
The letter, which I have right here. No, man, we all could have it. You printed it. Yeah.
I just feel like she's trying so hard. Like I remember when she was on local news, and
Yeah.
she was fine. She was okay. You know, no problems. But she goes on cable and she goes nuts.
Yeah.
Like she feels like she needs to do that to play the part.
It's
But
working.
she looks funny.
It's working. It's the Nancy Grace School. The show came on, I think, after Nancy Grace.
Yeah.
Or
Yep. Apparently that's what you have to do on cable. So now that I know, next time I go on MSNBC, I'm like, and then quote this, an outrage. I can do that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Just do this. Do this a lot. Yeah. President Obama.
All right. So now, so let's the way she did it is hilarious. But let's get to the actual story. Right?
Real quick about her in 3 seconds. We have mutual friends, more than a few, because I have still some local news connections, and that is, I don't want to call it a total front. I won't say that she's developed this on-air personality, but she is, by all accounts, awesome. Like just great and cool and fun to hang out with and totally normal. So it's weird to, like, people who know her are apparently like, Jesus, Jane. But she's got it. She's found a little something that works for her on TV.
Yeah, look, it turns out some people on TV are acting. Did you know that?
Yeah, weird.
Okay, shocking. All right, so let's get to the heart of the story here. Was it wrong for the guy to do this to this transgender? Of course!
Yeah, well,
of course!
what kind of question is that?
No. So, but then the other questions arise. First, they allowed him to resign instead of firing him, right?
Yeah.
It has almost the same exact effect. So I'm not, should they fire him?
Actually,
Obviously,
isn't
they
it
should.
worse if he resigns because then he can't collect unemployment and he's in a little more trouble? So it's worse that he resigned.
That's the sense I get. So I don't think that's an issue. Then the second thing is she's suing for emotional distress for $25,000. Now look, in some of the letters were so threatening that you got a sense that she might be worried because then a church sent a letter.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Right.
A church sent her the newsletter with like the death and the skulls and all of this craziness.
How did the church find out?
Because this crazy DMV guy notified the church, and the church's like, "Oh, we got to be on top of this."
And it's not a normal church. It's one of those, abomination
So it's not her
house of
church.
churches.
It was like Fred Phelps' church.
No, yeah. So, but that made it more threatening, and so I can understand why she was scared. I'm against lawsuits because if you take out the death threat implication there, So the guy's an idiot. You ran into an idiot at DMV and he says you're going to go to hell. So you know how many people think I'm going to hell? Should I sue each one of them for $25,000 for emotional distress?
Do they
Be a
get
billionaire.
their money back when you actually go to hell?
Interesting. If they're right, that is a defense. Okay, so, but the death threats, then maybe. So she'd get $25,000.
It's, by the way, it's not $25,000. It's damages in excess of $25,000. So I think we don't know. It's just that they in filing it, they say it's going to be more than this.
Right.
How do you determine how much money you're going to sue for? Because do they just pull a number out of the air, like
yes, they do.
25,000?
Or it's like this: you say it's in excess of $25,000. That puts it on, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. You're the lawyer, but that puts it on a specific track, and then the jury decides. I mean, that's.
I of course have no idea, but I will tell you this: my best guess is that the lawyers probably know what range in that jurisdiction they have won money for this kind of claim. Right, so they will probably put it in that range and try to get it that much. If we were on the jury, what do you think? I don't think I'd give her $25,000. Let's see, the guy got fired. Thank God, the guy's a lunatic.
Well, he'd refused service to a transgendered woman before.
Right.
And they probably should have fired him then. They didn't.
They didn't. That's true.
But it's hard to fire somebody from those civil service jobs. The DMV's hands are tied about I suspect, about how they're supposed to handle these things.
Right.
Obviously, they probably should have fired him. I mean, if there is no concern about, his rights as an employee, once you get into the government system, you're in a pretty good spot, whether you should be or not. That's how it is.
You give her $25,000?
No.
I do, and I think she should sue.
You give her
because that's how we do things. Like, there are too many lawsuits? Yeah, there are. But I mean, it's like, how else do you force the DMV to take it seriously? Just tell them to? They fired him? What about the next person? Is that okay? No, you make them pay. That's the only process we have in this country.
If it was not for the death stuff, I'd give her nothing. Okay, I'd say toughen up. There's a lot of emotional distress in the world. As long as you took care of the situation by getting the guy to leave the job. Okay, but since there is, am I not merciful? $10,000, pay your lawyer, go have a fun trip somewhere.
He sent the thing to the church, man. He messed up her life.
He didn't mess up her life.
I think that's going too
far.
Look,
a lot of those churches hate me. Yeah, they didn't mess up my life.
So you're tougher than she is. She's had to change sexes. She's scared. It's a difficult process. I don't really care. I want that we in this country I like lawyers, and we sue people.
What a lib.
Do we sue them? Well, I mean, what's the friggin' alternative? How else do you make BP pay? Out of the goodness of their frickin' heart? No, you sue the crap out of them. Each person who was affected by it sues. I mean, but how? Right?
No. I understand the value of lawyers. Some of my best friends are lawyers. All right, last thing on this. Jay, I don't know why, but I'm just curious. What would you do?
Yeah, she gets the money.
$25,000.
It's not very much. I mean,
it's not
that much money.
Yeah, it's 5 figures. Yeah, she gets the money, and it's really, I think the part about the getting fired versus resigning, it's worse to get fired because that's like a blemish on your work history, and people can be like, oh, is this guy a problem? Does he have issues? Does he have baggage? Resigning means I decided to leave, so it's easy for you to get another job.
He could just become the head of the DMV at Fox. They'll give him work.
He'll hand out like the little golf carts that people go around in the lot.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, totally.
And they'll love him over there. All right, now that we've resolved that, we can move on to lesbians.
All right.
Jesus, what the hell's going on today?
A new car ad in Italy has been banned because of its sexual content. So this is an ad for the Renault.
Renault, right?
Oh, okay, Renault. It's
a French car. Are we wrong?
No, you're right. It's a French car, so it's the Renault. And yeah, let's watch the ad and see whether or not it should be banned.
Involves lesbians. Already having fun. Oh, she's a very naughty girl.
Renault Twingo 1060, la competizione è femmina. Renault, drive the change.
I'm amused that even in Italy they did drive the change. Why is that in English?
I don't know. And why English with an Italian accent? It's like how we pretend that like that's my version of what Italian is. You know?
Drive the change. All right. Anyway, so one of them is a lesbian. She gets hoodwinked by the terrible thief that is
I didn't understand what's happening.
Preying upon poor lesbians.
Oh, she stole the car?
Yeah. She's like, oh yeah, we're gonna get it on, right? And then they go into the room, and then she's like, ha ha, takes her shirt, puts it on, and goes and steals her car.
Why does she need her shirt? If the car doesn't work, if it's a different
She
shirt.
probably really liked the shirt too. Probably
Yeah.
the
I
designer.
don't think she stole her car. I think she stole her shirt. It matches the color of her own car.
Oh,
I didn't think there
so
was-
she's just a shirt thief.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I-
that's why she was seducing her. She's like, I'm gonna come make you get your clothes off so I can take your shirt.
I want that shirt.
Oh, I see.
And by the way,
how did they know though?
Also,
How did,
aren't there guys there? Are they bisexual?
no. Well, I think one of them is just clearly lesbian and got rooked here.
Yeah, she didn't.
She's
steal-
still waiting.
She didn't steal his car. Yeah, now that woman's up. It's fine. She just lost
okay.
her shirt. What's the big deal?
Okay, somebody will find her a shirt. Okay, so this has been banned. Ironically, one of the TV stations not running it is Berlusconi's TV station.
I know.
Oh, come on, come
Berlusconi,
on.
who are you kidding?
Who are you kidding, Berlusconi? How many times did you go to work on that ad? Please, please, Berlusconi, come on. And the one station that doesn't mind running it is Sky, owned by News Corp, the same people who own Fox News Channel. Okay, so the family values people over here are like, what, lesbians with their shirt off? Of course, I jump in it, right? So now, should it be banned? Oh, come on, what are you banning this for? I thought the Europeans were more liberal than us.
Catholic Church, guarantee.
Oh, okay.
You're never thinking about the children, Jank. You're so selfish.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I said, what about children? What if they see that some lesbians are thieves and they actually just want your shirt?
Who's buying that car? It's like a freaking bike.
Well, the Europeans are.
The newspaper Corriere della Sera. Not bad.
Yeah, it wasn't bad actually. And now all of a sudden I'm in the mood for spaghetti and meatballs.
Totally. I served. I'm like, oh, on the way home, I got this tuna sandwich that couldn't stink more here. I'll stop and get a little pasta with garlic and oil. So the paper says, is it controversial or cutting edge? At no point during the advert. That's why everybody hates Europeans, because they say things like advert. At no point during the advert, at no point during the advert is any technical aspect of the Renault Twingo ever mentioned. Yeah, it's an ad, man.
Yeah, wait a minute. I'm sorry, were we supposed to mention the engine?
Yeah,
Or the
have you seen
hydraulic,
an
whatever it is in
American
a
car
car?
ad? It just shows the car driving up the friggin' freeway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't talk about the horsepower.
Yeah. Some do, but others are like,
Right, no, it's about it's about selling an idea. That's what adverts do.
Yeah.
That's what
Right.
advert men do.
By the way, this advert comment of his, I guarantee to get an email from at least
Yeah,
two of our
totally.
European listeners. At least.
Yeah.
But probably more.
Bring it.
What about you Yanks with your funny little saying?
Yeah, I don't like us either, just to be clear.
Okay, I'm moving on from the lesbians. I got to go to the rednecks. I promised the rednecks.
All right,
do
let's do
rednecks.
the rednecks right now.
Okay.
So it turns out that a guy named Rob Clayton from Virginia is very upset that the rednecks do not get enough recognition in American culture. All right, so what he
That is
did
not
is
true.
he created something known as the American Redneck Society.
Good for him.
All right, and people pay their dues. In fact, it costs $20 for membership, and a part of the funds go toward education for rural youth.
Rural youth.
Yeah, that's tough.
Rural
Wasn't there a skit on 30 Rock on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rural juror.
The rural
It turned out to
juror.
be the rural juror.
I still can't tell which one is which.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like this guy. I like anybody who's proud to be a redneck. I'm serious about that. I don't know. In some weird way, I got a soft spot in my heart for rednecks.
Really?
Yeah, I do. You know why? Because they're real Americans, okay? And not like those people up in San Francisco. No, seriously? I don't mean real Americans as in like, oh yeah, red state. No. I mean real Americans as in, look, they're middle class and they enjoy things like I enjoy. Like I like subs and basketball and watching football. And these guys like their pickup trucks.
They like NASCAR.
And guns.
Yeah, well, I know. So they're different.
No,
they
I'm
like
ki-
different things
I'm
than
kidding.
I do.
I lived in South Carolina for 5 years among gazillions of rednecks, and it's a
Come on. Like, if that's what rednecks do, there's no way that any decent human being should be against it.
right. There's some stereotyping, and this. First of all, what I admire to him is that what he's done here is create something that doesn't exist. Right. I mean, there's no society. You don't need a society. These people are already here, and he said, "I'll give you a card, and you give me $20."
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, there's a lot to love about this guy.
Yeah, he's an American.
Yeah, and he says, look, I give you a card. You get discounts some places.
Yeah.
Redneck places.
Yeah.
JR.
I'm just thinking maybe you should go ahead and maybe begin to try to dispel. I don't know how big of a rumor, how big of a stereotype it is that rednecks aren't necessarily open-minded people.
Yeah, well, I hear you. I hear
Well, the term redneck has been used to sort of equate with sort of backwards racists. Of course, what it really is farmers, is people whose necks are red from working outside in the sun.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, if we go back to the, I mean, look, we all know who's going to join this group. let's not kid ourselves, and that's JR's point.
No, I hear you. Look, but there's a lot of rednecks, especially in this day and age,
Gazillions.
that aren't racist,
No.
right? So I'm for the non-racist rednecks, okay? And by the way, on their website, how do you know if you're a redneck? It's like a Jeff Foxworthy skit,
Yeah,
of
it's, I
course.
mean, it's not. It's just like, I mean, it's the
It
whole thing's
is.
stolen.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of NASCAR, you're a gun owner,
We've been on it.
you like country music, you can just fix about anything with duct tape, and then yeehaw.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm in favor of duct tape and yeehaw, although I've never used duct tape in my life.
I use duct tape all the time. You know what I use it for?
What?
To fix shit.
Oh, yeah, that's good, yeah.
You know why? Because I don't know how to fix stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I could join something. We should start something called the American Jewish Society.
Uh-huh.
You know, and that could be also people who use duct tape.
And own banks.
Right, I was going to say, or we could just call them the bankers. Right, the American Jewish Society, also known as Wall Street.
That ain't right. That ain't right. All right, listen, guys. We are done with all of our racial stereotypes for the day, but we've got a Rethink review coming out, which is excellent. And then in the post game, what you look like can affect whether you get a job. Now that's not surprising, but the rest of it is incredibly surprising.
There's a twisty twist.
Yeah, there's two twisty twists that you really got to hang on for. That's in the post game. We'll come right back with Rethink reviews.